You've been producing content, but sales are flatlining. What are you supposed to do now? This episode is your forensic analysis of what's actually sabotaging your conversions. Most creators unknowingly commit these content crimes and then wonder why the heck things are not converting and why they're not signing clients. In this episode, we're pulling out all the evidence and releasing 7 content crimes that are costing you sales. These apply whether you are a coach, a service provider, an expert, an author, basically anybody who's selling whether a service or a digital product online. Content crime number 1 is identity fraud. You basically sound like every other expert online. This typically happens when you've been listening to a lot of experts and then you forget about your own originality, you forget about your own voice. And I'm saying this as somebody who this happened to me before as well. And there are ways to get out of it, but essentially, when you listen to several different people and even one person, you sometimes listen so attentively and then unknowingly you start sharing kind of the same or very similar message with your own audience, forgetting about who the heck you actually are. Sometimes you don't add the spices to your content. You share a very bland message, kind of like a really bland boiled chicken, and then you're like, this doesn't taste good. Like, you put out the content and then you may even look at it later. I typically do this with my content a couple of years after, not intentionally, but I would see a post on Facebook that I published, let's just say 7 years ago, and I think to myself, wow, how the hell did I post that? And then I start thinking back, what was actually really happening? Who was I learning from? What kind of trainings was I attending? What was I investing in? What prompted me to share this kind of piece of content, right? So your brand always needs to have its own originality because you do have your own uniqueness. So you just have to squeeze it in, spruce your brand more with it. And it's all about just getting clear on who you are, what your points of views are, what are the opinions that you're not afraid to voice. That's what your content is missing a lot of the times. It's just adding that little bit of extra edge, even a little bit of your own personality. For example, sometimes I would make a piece of content and I read through it and I'm like, okay, so anybody could have written that. And then I'm like, how can I add a little bit of my own opinion, maybe a little bit of story? What is a fun fact or little known fact that I don't always talk about? Because here's the deal, I'm never gonna just talk about myself in a piece of content unless it's a storytelling post and I still relate it back to my audience. But in general, I'm like, I just don't want it to be read, oh, she's just talking about herself. When is she actually gonna help me? Because people still care about your content because of what they're looking to get out of it, right? One way I add my personality when not necessarily talking about myself, recently I published a post and I added a little bit about myself, which went something like this. As a Capricorn and type A personality, this would be very not on brand for me to come unprepared for coaching calls. So that's just a little bit lets my audience know who I am on a more personal level. And this also reads like a post that I specifically wrote. So just those tiny little tweaks can really make a huge difference for your content. Content crime number 2 is ghosting the transformation. That's when you only share the surface level stuff, like only value content, only the how-tos, only the resources, and not more content that is deep. And here's what I want you to understand from this specific crime is you don't want your brand to be just a resource vault. You don't want to only be posting a bunch of tutorials on your account, unless that's what you are doing, unless you are, let's say, a video editor and you're publishing a couple of tutorials and then you have essentially like a media file or a course of all the different things that you put together for people how to become great video editors. In that case, it could work, but if you are a coach, if you are any kind of strategist with, should I say, a more high-level expertise, not that video editing is not a high-level expertise, of course it is, but there are different industries where you can get away with just being a resource and industries where you can't really get away with just being a resource. You have to give more depth in your content. And this is when I want you to think about different myths that you can bust. I want you to think about the belief shifting kind of content that you can create. Does your audience have any kind of beliefs that maybe are incorrect, or maybe you want to challenge them a little bit more and get them to think, because that's what's going to make them remember you and your brand and your content. Could you use any kind of fun analogies or metaphors to make your content more interesting? Even if it's just a little tutorial or a storytelling post, you can make it a lot more interesting than it is just by spilling facts. Because, like we all know, people don't always remember the facts, they do remember the stories, and they do remember something unexpected, maybe that has happened during those stories. Content crime number 3 is the call to action evasion. So every single time I've done a content audit, social media audit, did a strategy session, every single time a client asks, why am I not getting leads? Why am I not getting the sales? I'm posting consistently. I'm even posting several times a day, some days of the week, but something is still not happening. People are not asking to book calls with me. And then I look at the contents and there's the obvious thing that is missing, which is the call to action. If your call to action is, hope this helps, see you in the next one, that is not a call to action that's going to move people. You need to give people the next step. What do you want them to do after they read the post? Whether direct them to the link straight up, have them message a specific word, have them reply to your story, have them drop a comment, make people take the next step. And you kind of have to train your audience to do that, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time to train them, because if your audience is cold, or maybe they're warm but they're not used to you making call to actions, when it's been months of you posting and not really giving any kind of resource, not giving any kind of next step for them to take, it might take a little bit of getting used to you actually promoting something. I've noticed this with my brand. I've always been kind of promoting something throughout, but recently specifically, just because I started being more frequent with my call to actions, being a little bit more firm and more strong with my call to actions, using slightly bolder language than I have before, I've noticed a huge shift very, very early on. Content crime number 4 is the sales amnesia. That's when your audience has no idea what it is that you're selling. You think that you mention your offers, you think that you talk about them enough, but in reality, people need to see your offer at minimum 7 times today. And I would say with today's social media landscape, you have to even show your offers even more. You have to kind of get tired of talking about them, because when you get tired of them, that's when your audience is going to start seeing more of it. And then they're going to be like, oh, okay, so she's been talking about so-and-so program. She's been talking about this transformation. Oh, like Mary has this type of program. Oh, she also offers one-on-one calls. So you need to be able to talk about your offer frequently. I would even challenge you and pick a week and choose 3 to 5 different offers if you have, or if you have less, if you have just 1 or 2 offers. Pick a day and promote different offers in your stories. Just get used to promoting, because chances are you're not promoting enough. And I feel like with the social media being the way it is, yes, we do see a lot of ads. Yes, we do get bombarded with different offers all the time. But if you're constantly just providing value, you do get to be a little bit entitled to promoting, because you also deserve to get paid. And the other thing is, if you don't have a strategic launch plan, that is another thing that you also want to work on, because I've done those kind of launches where I would show up and then I would just talk about my offer once and then think, oh, well, okay, no one bought, or maybe I'm just going to move on to the next thing. No, you actually have to keep talking about it. You have to have a plan that you're going to do, whether you're going to launch just one offer and then go back to audience building, or whether you're going to do a series of offers, promote the core offer, and then the next month you're going to downsell into something else. So this is what I want you to consider. Ideally, you want to plan your sales campaigns ahead of time so you know which month you're promoting what. For example, if you're running any kind of Black Friday special, you also want to be preparing that ahead of time, and you want to put it in your calendar. So you ideally want to work on it during summer so you can get a head start, and then you're not scrambling until last minute. Content crime number 5 is evidence concealment. You have the proof, you have the testimonials, you have the case studies, but you for some reason just don't share them enough. Or you forget that you even have them, because the best lazy girl sales strategy is to leverage the testimonials and the proof that you have. Because when other people see that what you deliver, what you offer in the programs is actually helping other people, it makes it more believable that that's what you're going to provide for them as well. Because you can be the best genius in the world, but if you're not leveraging the testimonials, sometimes things are just not going to be converting. And I've noticed this throughout my content as well for years. Every single time I use testimonials, I get clients. And I challenge you to, maybe you have everything sporadic. That's what I've had as well. I would save screenshots and then I would forget where they are in my phone. I would encourage you to create a folder, whether it's on your phone, preferably on your phone because it's going to be easier to access, where you can load up all the videos, all the screenshots, all the testimonials, all the little case studies, put them there so that way they're always handy. And every single time you want to have a quick sale or do a quick promotion, not like a sale, but like you want to attract a new client, you are going to have those testimonials handy. You don't have to go and connect your USB drive or access your Google Drive or anything like this. You're just going to have them handy in your phone gallery. Content crime number 6 is conversion evasion. That's when your content educates, but it's not necessarily persuasive enough to convert your audience. You are creating great content, but you're not leveraging any kind of copywriting principles or psychology principles throughout your content. Here's what I mean by that. You get to address more objections, you get to address more of the desires that your potential customers are having. I'm not telling you to use pain point marketing or anything like this, because your audience is essentially just going to stay on the struggle bus, and a lot of the times they're just not going to hire you because they're going to be like, well, I'm just going to stay in my crappy little situation. But I want you to focus on the desires that your audience have and focus on filling the gap in their current situation. So they may be at a place A and then you want them to be at a place B, or they want themselves to be at a place B. How can your program, your coaching, or your service, or your digital product fill that gap for them? So when you're creating content, it's not just about educating, entertaining, and inspiring. It's also about freaking selling and persuading and being influential. Because if you just educate, inspire, and entertain, you forget about the most important thing, and that is influence. Because you're not going to sell without having some sort of influence over your audience. Think about the emotional motivators that you can use in your content. What kind of persuasion tricks or hacks that you can leverage, and make sure that they're ethical. Make sure you're not using this for anything bad. Make sure that when you Google anything related to persuasion or persuasive psychology, it's not going to be like anything harmful, because you're trying to do the good in the world. And I know if you're listening to this, you're not a bad person. I'm sure you're trying to do the good in the world. You're trying to sell your offers, your programs, you want to help people, you want to create more impact, and these techniques are going to also help you out. I'm not somebody who teaches persuasion or psychology, but if you Google a couple of things, you're going to find a lot. And there's also a lot of different books that you can check out. There is a book, a lot of any kind of book by Robert Greene. He's got a couple of books. One is called Mastery, the other one is called Persuasion. He's got a book about seduction, 48 Laws of Power, I believe it's called. There's another book about human nature. So any of his books, they can be a little bit dangerous, so use them for good. Again, I would highly recommend leveraging psychology and learning more about that skill so you can infuse that in your content. And last but certainly not least, content crime number 7 is the identity theft. That's when you forget who the heck you are and you don't show up as your true self. You forget to infuse your personality. Make sure you add a couple of things in when you are creating content, whether it is your love for travel, whether it is your love for food. It doesn't have to be all the time. It has to be kind of relevant to what you do. For example, I just did a post regarding why I work so hard, and it was just like a funny trend for Instagram that I work so hard because my love language is acts of vacations. So this was relevant. I shared a little bit of my own personality. This post honestly had nothing to do with business, but kind of everything to do with what I do for a living. So inject a little bit more humanity into your brand, get people into your world a little bit, show your fun side on the stories. I always try to be on stories, especially when I travel, especially when I hang out with friends. I'm a pretty private person in general, but I also do want to let people know, like, this is who you're going to work with. Like, sure, I'm going to be professional on a sales call, I'm going to be professional on a strategy call, but I still have a fun personality. And that's why a lot of the times people end up working with me, because of who I am as a person and not just because the amazing skills that I have. Now, I will say that these crimes are not fatal, but if you ignore them for way too long, then you're going to have to spend just as long to fix them. So you can infuse all of these fixes that I've provided throughout this episode back into your content strategy so you can start generating the leads and the sales and the clients and all that good stuff. Because the goal is not to post more and be in front of your audience all the time. Like, sure, it's cool when people tell you, like, I wake up and the first thing that I see on my Facebook and Instagram accounts is your face. And I'm like, great, my content strategy is my main skill set. So of course I like that, but at the same time, I always want to post with precision, and every single post has the intention. Why the heck am I posting this? And if you want to make more sales through your content, you have to be more intentional with it. So I want you to review your content and find which content crimes have you been committing. And now that you know them, you also know how to fix them. If you'd like to take the next step in creating good quality content, but you want to make it even more strategic and make it more memorable for your brand, I do have a free cheat sheet about creating your signature content series that's going to not only make you sales, but also make you memorable, get you known for your one specific skill. Go ahead down into the show notes and grab your copy. If you have any questions whatsoever, be sure to DM me on Instagram and let's have a chat about all your content needs.